Hi there, thanks for joining me for another broadcast here. We're looking at our HSE prosecutions. Sorry, we've been a bit slow this week to get this one uploaded. Of course, it was St. Patrick's Day over the weekend just past, so for us of the Irish persuasion, there was a few holidays taken and so on. So Monday morning, I was out on the in the Atlantic Ocean, swimming and surfing and things, so I wasn't able to do the live broadcast. But alas, we're here now. This one's going to be short. I just want to look through one of the recent prosecutions as we normally do here, and this one is related to rather sort of smaller side of the fine, the fine side of things. It was a £40,000 fine plus costs for what appears to be a relatively small company, but I thought it was interesting just the type of injury and the incident that happened. So I'll just throw it up on screen now for you to have a look. Let's see if we can get that up. Okay, you'll see up in the top corner now just some of the information related to the case here. And essentially what happened is there were a few guys working on a project doing some cabling works. I'm not sure if it was a brand new site necessarily, but evidently new infrastructure was being put in to an area here, and what was happening was that when the cabling was being put in, a couple of the workers, including the victim of the injury, were working in close proximity to live electrical equipment. So for those of you who are not familiar with working with electrical equipment and so forth, we won't go into too much of the technical detail on that, but this is something that I've had a bit of a background in working with myself, having worked with a company involved in the electrical grid in a previous life. And so when I seen this, I thought it was quite fitting just to raise the point on it, because it's something that I feel like can go amiss or can be hidden in terms of a risk. Of course, electricity in itself is somewhat invisible when it comes to actually identifying or seeing a visible risk, and in that sense we can become a wee bit sorry, my phone's going, we can get a little bit complacent with it when it comes to managing it and identifying when there's a real risk there. So in this case what happened was the guys were working, let me just remove this image, the guys were working on alongside electrical equipment, and one of the areas that there would be a high level of an electrical current going through would be what's called a bus bar, which is a piece of electrical equipment that helps distribute the power across an interface and into different areas of a site or electrical infrastructure. So I'll just put an image up here of what one of those may look like if you're not familiar. So hopefully you can see on the screen now what a bus bar would look like. Typically made from copper, and you'll find them in electrical cabinets and so forth within that distribution setup for a site. So what happened in this case was the guys were working on cabling. I'm not sure what sort of cabling they were putting in or anything. We don't get that information. But the bus bars themselves, as you'll see if you read the case, which I'll link to, were not fully guarded. So there was a panel that was covering or offering some form of protection from the bus bars, and these bus bars would be typically live, so there's an electrical current running through them, and in this case they certainly were. The bus bars weren't depowered in any way, so the guys were working on the cabling, and as they were working, taking nuts and bolts and screws out of the equipment that they were working on, one of the nuts that they were using actually fell into the gap on the panel that was protecting the bus bar itself. And actually just by that happening, the electricity or the charge jumped onto the piece of metal, and that caused an electrical flash. And that electrical flash then caused the injury to the person who was in close proximity to the bus bar and the live equipment itself. So in this case we actually got an image of the injury, which just by means of clearly the person was happy to share this by means of demonstration. I'll just put it up on the screen here if I can find the right one. So this is the person here who was injured by the electrical flash. The electrical flash would have been very intermittent, very quick, sort of like a mini explosion, so to speak, and clearly the effect on the skin and the face here you can see from the image. It shows you just how electricity can jump depending on the level of current that's there. The proximity that you are to the live equipment is really important, and it's just important to raise the point on, whoever is working on it or allowing the work to take place needs to have an understanding of what type of risk exists there. And if you're working in around equipment that's bringing in electricity from the outside network, you're usually coming from a higher level of power down to a lower level at the site level. So if you're working in and around the equipment, you're going to be potentially exposed to a higher level of risk, and therefore it's really important that you do get your safety right. So what can we take away from it then? Just a couple of quick points, things I maybe touched on already, but for me I would say, first of all, as we can identify in this one, we were working, or the people were working in very close proximity to live equipment. They may not have had an understanding that that was the case. I'm not sure of the exact details here in this particular circumstance, but the question should be really, does that equipment need to be live? If it is live, is it well enough protected, and therefore are the people working around it protected? Evidently, in this example, there wasn't adequate protection, so the result was that flash and the subsequent injury. The second thing then was looking at lockout tagout, or actually depowering the system. So if you're going to have to work in close proximity or with live equipment, the immediate question must be, does it need to be live when the work is taking place? 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, we'll want to make sure that electrical current is removed and the system is depowered where it is possible. There are cases, of course, where you'll have to work on live equipment for testing purposes and so on, but you really should minimize that to the furthest extent possible. Okay, so and that leads us on to the third part, which I think goes back to something I mentioned just at the start of this, which is electrical hazards are typically invisible if you don't have signage or obvious infrastructure alluding to the risk that exists. If you're someone who isn't aware of the hazard, then it's very easy to miss it. But also equally, what I've found over the years is when it's normalized to be around electrical risks and hazards, it can also and people can become complacent to the actual risk that is there. So if someone's working alongside bus bars that are live, that is something that is happening on a daily basis, for example, they may become complacent as to, for example, if the guard panels are in the right position, if there is a gap, as there was in this instance, are they actually recognizing it? So, you just need to make sure that those that are working in close proximity are reminded regularly of the danger that they are in. And of course, the first port of call should be to remove that danger and work without live power in the first place, if it is at all possible. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful and a bit of a reminder around electrical risk. Certainly something that we've come up against, and I've come up against a lot in my career, and it can be something that's often sort of left to the experts or left to those that are qualified to work on it, which it very much should be. But it's worth remembering also that if there are others who are going to have to work in close proximity to it, that the hazards and the risks are well established and understood and communicated before people go near it. Okay, so I'll take that guy's photo away now. I think it's obvious that the injury that's happened to him there is pretty severe and probably life changing for him. So anyway, that's another one to ponder. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Please do let us know in the comments and in the with the like button, of course, and do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so we can let you know when we're doing more of these. And hopefully we'll be back onto our regular schedule on a Monday morning next week.